All right, it is 4 o'clock. That's called the March 27th special board meeting to order, please. Roll call.
Directors Akbari,
Here.
Gunther,
Here.
Sethy,
Here.
Weed,
Here.
and Huang.
Here. Director Sethy, would you do the
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation.
Next item is public comments on matters on this notice of special board meeting. Do we have any members of the public online?
Doing another quick check here. I do see a member of the public online. Yep. If you'd like, I can do some real quick housekeeping to kind of
Yes,
make sure
please.
everybody knows how to participate in our meeting this afternoon. Good afternoon. On behalf of the ACWD Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome the public's participation in this special meeting of the ACWD Board. My name is Ed Stevenson, and I serve as the district's general manager. Members of the public may participate in this board meeting in person or remotely by either using the Zoom application or by telephone. Any member of the public participating in person may approach the speaker's podium at the appropriate time. For those participating remotely, note that the meeting agenda and the presentation materials are all available on the district's website at acwd.org. You may reference the instructions at the top of the agenda for how to participate, or your dial pad if you're participating by telephone audio. This hybrid board meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public for future viewing. And again, thank you for attending, and that completes my housekeeping remarks.
Thank you. I see we have one member of the public. Do you wish to address the board, make any public comments on matters on this notice of special board meeting? If you wish to do so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, and I do not see any members of the public in attendance in person today. So let's move on to item number 4, strategic planning workshop, please.
That's great. Thank you, President Huang. This is the first in a series of strategic planning workshops for this year, but it follows some other work that we had done to kind of set up for this process previously. And these workshops are focusing on updating the district's 5-year strategic plan. This initial workshop will be an opportunity for the board and the public to provide initial input on an update to the strategic plan and the strategic planning process. And so we've got a number of things we'd like to cover with the board this evening. And I do want to also emphasize for our member of the public, you can always raise your hand at any point in our meeting this evening. Raise your hand in the Zoom app, and we'll be happy to make sure we turn to you for any input or thoughts that you might have at the appropriate time. So we can get right into it. Our who's handling the clicker? Okay. No problem. If you want me to click, I can.
I can click.
Okay. All right, so we want to go ahead and get started this evening. First, just kind of a little bit of context. I wanted to introduce folks that are here, in addition to, our exec staff, our general counsel, and folks that are supporting the meeting. We also have special guests. We have Jackie McLeod, who's our special assistant to the general manager, who'll be really doing a lot of the legwork in this process. We'll be working with the board and others throughout the organization to ensure that we're doing a good job updating our strategic plan. So really appreciate Jackie's efforts thus far, and thank her in advance for her efforts moving forward. Also not on the list here is Ethan Birch. Here in the audience, the board's very familiar with Ethan, an analyst here with the district, but the board knows Ethan as being involved in all kinds of stuff that we do, strategically important stuff for the organization. You know him well from the financial work that we do, the Help on Tap program, which is Ethan's his program to administer. He's also the head of our grant funding team and does a lot of other important work for the district. He'll also be elbows deep in the strategic planning work as we move forward. Also, though, our very special guest, and I'm very, very proud and honored to have with us Jennifer Persicki, and Jennifer is new to this process, but certainly not new to the board. And so Jennifer has more than 35 years of experience leading and working with California water and energy organizations, statewide associations, nonprofits, and corporations, in addition to local, state, and federal entities. And her firm, Jennifer Persicki and Company, specializes in consultation for critical business needs, including organizational optimization, leadership development and training, and external affairs. Ms. Persicki is the past executive director of Leadership California, a statewide nonprofit organization dedicated to increasing the representation and influence of diverse women leaders in all sectors across California. She's also former deputy executive director for the Association of California Water Agencies, or ACWA, and serves on numerous other governing boards, such as the American Red Cross, Gold Country. She's the chair there. ACWA Foundation, vice chair. Water Education Foundation, the Association for Women in Water, Energy, Environment, and the Urban Water Institute. So many of us know Jennifer from many of her other engagements, and we're super, super thrilled to have Jennifer helping us with this process, by the way, which is another big thing that Jennifer does with a lot of great success. And she's had an instrumental role in the strategic plans of lots of organizations that are being successfully used today. So we're super honored and thrilled to have Jennifer with us this evening, and she will jump in here in a few moments. But first, we wanted to provide a little bit of kind of context here. A quick look at the agenda for our workshop. It's a relatively light start to our strategic planning work. Don't worry. We will make you all work very hard during this process, but tonight we wanted to kind of reset things a little bit, a super brief review of the 2018 strategic plan, provide a little bit of input, a recap of the input that you all provided previously when we first kind of circled back to revisiting our strategic planning work. You all provided input during a workshop in September of 23. Talk about some of the considerations for our strategic planning work going forward, and then we'll talk about some next steps. So if you don't mind, thank you, Jackie. So overall objectives then for this evening are to provide that reset in terms of the input that the board and the public previously provided. Also have a little bit of a discussion to get your juices flowing, and even some thought starters in terms of some of the topics that we'll be working through as we move forward through these series of meetings. And then we'll get into the specifics of where we're headed next, what it'll look like, and so that we can all be thinking about the process moving forward. Next slide, please. So this is just a review. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on reviewing our current strategic plan. We spent a fair amount of time on that previously. But just as a big picture, the district right now is working with a strategic plan that was developed really back in 2018. That has served us really well. The core sort of, there's going to be different terminology that's shared, but the sort of core initiatives, the main objectives that are carved out in our current strategic plan are all centered around cost effectiveness and value, water supply, finance, workforce, and communication. And as this board knows, there's a whole lot rolled up under each one of those categories. Next slide, please. And again, I won't spend a ton of time here either. And we did spend probably around an hour on this previously. So we've been there, done that, but I just had to provide a super quick reset and reminder, particularly for members of the public, about how the existing strategic plan has driven the work that we've done, the priorities that we assign to the things that we're working on, and it really has been a big part of ensuring that it's driving the priorities of the things that we do. And so here we've listed just a few of the things that we've done underneath the current strategic plan. Won't go through all of them, but cost effectiveness and value, you'll see lots and lots of capital work, lots and lots of infrastructure work, priority work related to our distribution system, our transmission system, renewals and upgrades, You'll see work in initiatives related to production facilities and also IT and, information technology and operating technology, infrastructure and systems. Under water supply and quality, of course, that's a key tenet of what we do. And under our existing strategic plan, we have prioritized those things that ensure that we can meet water quality objectives 100% of the time, which is what we do. Also, there are a number of things we've done related to water quality enhancements and regulatory compliance. Some of them listed here, certainly not nearly everything, but just some major items. Under finance, the board's very aware of our work that we've done to further improve our financial situation, improve our finance policies relating to finance. We've actually done a lot of work in that area and have been very successful. And the board knows that, in fact, we've won a number of awards associated with that work. And it also has recently shown up in the form of improved, bond ratings by rating agencies and companies out there that have, in fact, very recently proved beneficial to our customers. And we'll get a very brief general manager's report about that later this evening. Under workforce, you can see there's been a whole lot of work, a lot of focus on employee engagement. And so we've made some real strides. In fact, had a long meeting today about some of the continuing work that we're doing with regard to employee engagement. And so we've made a lot of strides there. We know there's more to do with regard to workforce. And then in communications, our strategic plan has guided how we've prioritized the different ways that we engage with our community and our customers. So just a super quick high-level update there, but those are some of the ways that the current strategic plan has really driven our work. And then so finally, for me, next slide. This is it's a reminder for the board, but more for the public. We don't take our current strategic plan as a document that sits on a shelf and gathers dust. That's in fact very much opposite of the way we use our strategic plan document and the various strategic initiatives that are in there. In fact, we have what we call dashboards where we track strategic initiatives, how we're doing on each of them. We further break out into detail the strategic priorities within our existing plan into very specific objectives and goals that we want to meet. And we track our progress toward those goals on a quarterly basis in detail, but sort of continuing. And then we also add to that core metrics, or they're really KPIs, kind of key performance indicators that we use to quantitatively, in a lot of cases, assess how we're doing and making sure that where our priorities have directed us to a certain area, we want to make sure that we're getting there. And if resources need to change or priorities need to change, we want to make sure that we're reacting. So we track all of these things routinely. So I have a couple of little snippets of those dashboards here. These are not the dashboards. And as the board knows, we really, and you'll see it in our board packet every month where we have a regular board meeting with action items on it. We really tie those items that we're bringing to the board and to the public back to our strategic plan, because these are the things that guide the things that we do here at the district. So with that, next slide. So with that, I'll turn it now over to Jackie. So Jackie's coming to all this with a very unique perspective, having done some of this work in the past, but she's relatively new to the district. She's here about 6 months. It feels to Jackie like she's been here probably 10 years, but she's been very busy. But one of the things that we were thinking it'd be great to capture Jackie's perspective, having not participated in this process here in the past, but now being thrown into it here to gather her perspective in terms of where we've been so far and the input that we've received from the board and from the public so far. So Jackie, tell us about this.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson, and thank you to the entire board and all my colleagues. So I definitely got to watch the last board meeting, and a lot of my observations that you're going to hear in summary is based on what I observed from your last board meeting, which was very engaging. You were going through the scoping process for what did you want the new strategic plan update to look like. So I'm going to review the 2018 strategic plan, not in full. That's a very large document, so I'll give a snippet. I'll talk how the 2018 plan has guided the operations and priorities, some of the planning considerations, and then where I tee off for the discussion is the scoping discussion, which Ms. Persyke will come in and help me. So some of the input that we heard during the workshop from the board in particular is, did we want to update the 2018 plan or did we want to start all over with a new plan? And what we heard from the board was an update seemed to fit us right now. We weren't going to do a substantive, brand new strategic plan. There were questions about whether we wanted to hire a consultant to be the lead on updating the strategic plan or if we wanted staff to do it. And the decision from the board was staff predominantly should be the holders. Staff tends to have the most buy-in when it comes to district priorities and what we want to carry forward. But we thought we're going to need some facilitation help because this is something that's very tailored to what Ms. Persyke does. We had heard in the strategic plan workshop previously in September that there were some discussions about the plan frequency. We heard that a 5-year update didn't feel like it would capture the long-term goals and priorities of the board, the district, for our community. So while we are still going to stay with that 5-year update, we are looking at long-term and long-range plans in order to inform what are we going to do right now to get to those long-range goals. So we will capture that within the update. We asked who were our key or interested parties in the strategic plan update. We thought that there should be a customer survey potentially for key information and feedback. Ms. Persyke will take on that piece and discuss that a little bit later. And then who are our interested parties? We should be putting more energy towards engaging students potentially. So internships came out of this quite a bit in workforce development. So what were some of our successes that we had from the input during the workshop? In water supply and quality, we figured the board interest still is valid in this, but we need to account for some unexpected changes like PFAS. We also need to consider a contingency plan and maximize all our available resources. That was stated in the 2023 workshop. In finance, again, the board's interests are still the same. They remain valid. We want to focus on cost reasonableness. So the public can anticipate lower revenues due to regulatory restrictions on consumption. That's still the same. Workforce, still valid, but we needed to include diversity. We heard that across the board. So we want to recruit and retain a highly engaged, diverse, innovative workforce to provide the highest caliber water management for the community. But one of the big focus areas from our board was we need to focus on internships and student opportunities. And in communications, we need more direct engagement, less outreach type of activities and school outreach like Frank, and I'm going to butcher the last name, John, is that right? Yeah. Okay. And this is an area of major improvement where we need to keep it up or do a little bit better in that. So when we look at what did we miss during the 2018 strategic plan, and again, this comes from the board workshop, resource loading was only considered broadly. It wasn't considered all across the categories. Affordability was an emerging issue and it wasn't addressed in the prior plan. There was a greater emphasis on groundwater management initiatives. Workforce and employee health and safety drives many priorities, but not specifically addressed in the prior plan. And workforce development opportunities with local schools and districts. And one of the things that really stood out to me when I was listening to the 2023 workshop was a potential adoption or a visions and values statement that the board would like to develop and craft. And with that, I would like to bring up Ms. Persyke to take over for the next slides.
Good evening, everybody. It's so great to see many familiar faces in the room, and it's truly my honor to assist with you in this process. I'm working with a number of agencies all over the state doing this kind of work, and it seems to be a real moment for this. Folks are finding themselves with plans that were, in many cases across the state, developed pre-COVID, pre a lot of the things that we've been grappling with. So the timing is just perfect for you all to be looking at this. With so many things on the horizon and so many changes as a result of climate change. So excellent timing, and I'm so happy to be a part of it again. So, strategic planning processes. I know that you're not strangers to this. Obviously, you've just gone through a quick summary of, what you've been through and where you're headed. And one of the things that really warms my heart is when I hear that you haven't let that plan sit on a shelf and collect dust. That in and of itself is a real accomplishment, and it means that you are really connecting your organization to the plan. And that's really our desire in these processes, to ensure that this is truly helping to guide the organization. So I like this little roadmap because what we want to start building from this moment forward in this process is that cleared roadmap to your future. And as Jackie mentioned, while it is a 5-year plan, certainly many of the things that you'll be addressing in your priorities will go well beyond that horizon. But we know you have to start today. So many things in water take so much time, right? The regulatory gauntlet, the legislative process, and then just the permitting and the planning, the engineering and construction, all of those things. So this is an excellent moment to begin this process. And, our hope is that we're integrating across the organization, and certainly it appears that that's been something that you've been doing previously, so that each element of the plan is truly supporting the next element and then the overarching goals of the organization. One of the reasons when I talk to agencies about whether to do it or not to do it, because it is a commitment, it's an investment of time for the board, for the team, is that it really does position, when you have a plan, when you have a vision, it positions the organization in a much more proactive posture than reactive, because you've really looked out there at your challenges, your opportunities, and you're able to move forward, understanding that those things are part of the scenario. So prepare and plan, we've been doing that. I've been able to work with your general manager, some of your team members, and we're just starting to kind of pull the process together, the timing, what we're going to do when. So that process is already underway. And explore and learn is going to be the element of this roadmap where we are gathering insights and input from the board, from the leadership team, from your customers, and you may identify other kind of niche groups that you want to get feedback from. So that will be starting soon, to actually already underway with your leadership team, but it will sort of run through a few of these workshops as well. And we will be bringing all of those insights back to share as we continue to meet. Of course, the strategic discussions, that's where we'll unpack much of this information. And, the board and the team will have the opportunity to really roll up their sleeves, if you will, and start digging into what you want this plan to look like going forward. And again, as has been mentioned, you've already identified some things that will be new to the plan this time around, and you may make other adjustments as we move along. That will be happening in those strategic discussions, and you have several workshops calendared, and that will be the focus there. And then, of course, creating the plan. There will be back and forth with drafts that are prepared of the different elements. and then ultimately the plan itself as we refine it, and then bring you back what we hope will be the plan that is worthy of adoption. Not to be left out would be the all-important implementation piece, which really makes that plan come to life. And that will be, you know, the charge of the team to come up with that actual action plan, as your general manager just spoke about, and move the plan forward into implementation. So that's our journey. And the elements, again, you're not strangers to this. I know many of you sit on other boards and you have been through these processes with them, but it's always worth sort of revisiting the elements and the building blocks of the plan. I'll be using a lot of best practices that we're seeing now as plans are developed with, in particular, the public water agency sector in California and elsewhere. I do a lot of work outside of California as well. But these are the key things that we're going to be taking a look at, some developing for the first time for the agency, others sort of taking a look at it. Do these words still capture where we are and where we want to go? So of course, we always start with the vision. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the context for the vision, but that's been put on the table as an element that we want to focus on. We're going to take another look at your existing or current mission statement. Does it still meet the moment and the moment in the future? Are there any elements missing? We're going to talk through values. Values is a really important exercise, both for you internally as it drives your organization, but it's also definitely an external piece that folks are looking for, especially those folks that you are looking to bring in as part of your workforce. This has become very high on the list. Your goals, priorities, we'll be taking a look at the current, again, goals and priorities, and determining whether any adjustments need to be made there. And the strategies, you can call them strategies, you can call them objectives, but it's really the how are you going to meet the goals? The actions will come, again, that will be an activity for the staff to build in support of the plan. So I want to now move a little deeper into just kind of how we're going to conduct business here. And I think it's always helpful for everyone to just understand roles and responsibilities. Of course, we know what the role of the board is. You have the big heavy lift here, overall setting of the mission and the vision, the values, and the priorities. That is your role, and you've been vested with that responsibility. The staff in this process will be a resource. They're going to be providing a lot of information, assisting me. Thank you, Jackie and Ethan. That's going to be very helpful, providing context, and again, that all-important action plan that will really make this come to life. My role as your facilitator is to guide the process, to ensure that all participation is there and that we're hearing all voices, and to confirm our decisions along the way, really make sure that we're, hitting the mark and coming through with a collective decision around all the elements, and to keep the process on track. We have a timeline, and I'll be getting to that a little bit later. So that is the roles and responsibilities for this process. Again, this is something that I like to revisit. And even though everyone knows this, it's always worth repeating, because there can be confusion, especially when you get into the business of the vision. What is the difference between a vision and a mission, et cetera. But for the strategic plan itself, when you look at it overall, it is intended to be a high-level vision for the organization, a blueprint, a roadmap. It sets out the priorities, and it connects and aligns your resources to those priorities. It needs to be specific and concise, and actionable. That's very important. So those are all the things that it is. Again, I would say maybe even more today than in the past, the strategic plan, once final and it's put up on your website and it really becomes integrated in everything you do, it plays a very important external role. It is actually an element of your branding, if you want to think about it that way, because it very significantly and firmly states what the agency is about, what the agency is going to do, and how you're going to be engaging overall. So very important external element there, in addition to also obviously driving internally. What it isn't, it's not going to be about every single thing that the agency does, right? It is, again, that high level roadmap. It is not an operations plan. And I work with a lot of agencies. They struggle with the differences, but it is not an operations plan, although that is a very important document to be, to have your arms around and to have in place as well. And as has been said earlier by General Manager Stevenson, it is not a plan to sit on a shelf and collect dust. It is a living, breathing document. And it should be looked at, it should be linked to, connected to, and adjusted as needed. So you're sure that it's still representing the needs of the organization. So digging into just sort of the overarching way to be looking at some of these things that we're going to be putting on the table, the vision is truly a very large aspirational picture of what an organization does. So it isn't the mission, it is distinctly different, but the vision and the mission actually do work together. They are complementary. The mission truly captures, again, succinctly, the fundamental purpose, the reason the agency exists, what does it exist to do. Values, which we're going to be talking about, are the guiding principles. It's the beliefs of the organization. It's the guideposts. And another way of looking at it is kind of becomes the lens through which you will be making decisions. Very important element. Again, this is a piece that many others outside of your organization are going to be looking at as well. Of course, your goals are your priorities. Those are the things you're going to be working on in the time period, the things that you're going to be assigning your resources to. And finally, again, strategies becomes the how, the true objectives of how you're going to go about approaching your work. And as we walk through these steps to develop all of these things or update these different elements, it's always, an interesting and iterative process. And to be succinct and to be brief in the way that we articulate things really reduces confusion and ambiguity. So that's something that we'll be looking to do. A few other considerations, and this has been mentioned now a couple of times, but while it is a 5-year plan, there is a extended vision overall and a planning horizon beyond. Adaptability is something that I'm hearing a lot about as I work with agencies around the state. Important to ensure the plan is adaptable in the very uncertain sort of times that we're living in. Again, I mentioned climate change, but other issues as well. We'll be collecting, as I've mentioned, through our explore and learn phase, insights that are really going to help frame our discussions. So anything that we talk about today will be coming back. It's going to help us frame the agenda for our next discussion. And also to really start to see creating key themes around the plan and areas of focus. I am going to be sharing best practices, samples of what others are articulating for their visions and missions, both water agency type examples and other examples, because I think it's helpful to see both. And as we dig in to review the goals for Alameda County Water District, we're going to try to craft the goals with an eye towards SMART goals, which simply means it's very specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and has a specific time element to accomplish that specific goal. So let's take a minute to think about, and this is not the only time we're going to talk about this, but we're putting this out here tonight so we can get the creative juices flowing, as it were.
Actually, Ms. Persyke, before we get on to vision, I'm seeing
Yes.
scribble notes on my rest of the directors'
Ah.
table. So do we have any questions from the directors?
Absolutely, please.
Before Director Wee.
The risk of jumping in too early. Suggest that our goals and strategic planning is longer than 5 years. This is a 5-year update on the much longer term goals and objectives of the district.
Thank you.
Director Akbari, nothing? Okay. Any questions from our member of the public online? If you have a question for Ms. Persyke, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any hand. Welcome, Mr. Abreu. Do you have any questions so far? No. If not, moving on. Thank you, Ms. Persyke.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. So again, we are just going to look at a few examples of vision statements. Again, the vision is an aspiration. It is the big picture impact that the agency hopes to be and really have as an outcome of the words and the work that it's involved in. And in looking at a few examples here, which I think are very interesting and should start to help you to envision a vision, if you will, we give you this example as a first example for Nike. So Nike's vision is to remain the most authentic, connected, and distinctive brand. What strikes you about that vision statement? Anything jump out?
Nothing about what they do or what they sell or anything.
That's right. No mention of tennis shoes or athletic wear, right? Because we're talking about the vision here. So they are taking it to that very high level in terms of the things that they produce and what the outcome actually is as a result. So it's interesting to see that very different from what the mission statement would look like. Here's another example that kind of gives you that same big picture and big claims from Apple to make the best products on earth and to leave the world better than we found it. Again, we notice no mention of iPhones or iPads or iWatches, but rather the outcome or the impact of what this company does. That's what we're looking for in a vision. I'm going to get a little narrower here, but I wanted to start really big to open up our minds here. PPIC, such an interesting organization, and they have truly become critical to almost any sector you can think of in California for the work that they're doing, water also being among them. And they've really built a reputation. This vision is interesting because it really elevates them. They are elevating the place and their space in California and in the work they do with this vision, providing essential information and framing the policy debate to shape a better future for California. So they're positioning themselves, aren't they, with this statement? And it's an influencer, if you will, kind of statement. They're saying, this is where we are, this is where we sit, and this is what our work results in. You know, again, and they're right on the money. because the work they've done in water has truly been transformative as it has on other public policy issues. All right, now we're going to get to the neighborhood, if you will. Water. Your friends over there at Valley Water. I was having a fun conversation earlier with Director Weed. It's always interesting when you claim certain things, right? And they are making a very bold statement here in their vision. Valley Water is nationally recognized as a leading water resources management agency. So what was important to them, and in the way they've laid this out, is to demonstrate that they're leading, that they're a model, and that they are recognized as such. So that's sort of their flavor, their take on a vision. Now we're going to go a little farther north, and feel free to interrupt me at any time. Yuba Water Agency. So they're up in Northern California. They have a lot of challenges up there. But this is a really interesting vision statement, because what they wanted to put on the table is an outcome for their community as part of their vision. A prosperous and thriving Yuba County and elevated quality of life achieved through strategic water resource management and community investment. So they wanted to make a statement of outcome as a result of the services they're providing. This is what we're bringing to the community. So connecting to the bigger picture, connecting to their community.
I will add here, I've been countless times to New Bullards Bar Dam right here.
Yes.
And recreation is a really important element of how they run their water district.
Mm-hmm.
Not only for Yuba County, but for the broader Northern California area. You know, for fishing, boating, camping, all kinds
Right.
of recreation.
Right. So they really have a very visible connection in their community, and they wanted to make that very visible in their vision
And
statement.
they're managing this watershed too, which
Yes.
is huge
Yes.
for fire protection, for
Floods.
right, and the fishery habitats, everything else.
Exactly. So I'm glad you picked up on that, because we want to really try to read between the lines with these vision statements, because it's going to be your opportunity to do the same for Alameda County Water District. Any other thoughts before I provide some examples on values that you want to share at this moment around vision?
I'll just mention, I found Valley Waters to be, and no disrespect if they watch this, but I found theirs to be kind of the weakest. Like, as an individual, I feel like with the other vision statements, there's some relatability. Valley Waters feels less relatable from an individual's perspective. But that was just one of my takes.
I will build on that because I have seen their missions or vision statement many times. I find it arrogant too, that it's pretentious. It is saying it's not aspirational who we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a declaration, which I find to be very arrogant.
So it's a good example of what not to do, probably, for you all, right? That's why I wanted to show it to you, because there's definitely a reaction to these different visions, right?
Add me to the list.
All right. Well, I've made notes on that already. So look at the progress we're already making. So let's talk for a minute. Anybody else on vision? We're going to come back to this again at the next workshop. But I want to make sure we hear from everyone.
So let me see if our members of the public, both in the room and online, have any thoughts for us on vision so far? In the room? No? Mr. Brew? How about online? If you have anything, if you would like to share what you envision our vision should be, or have any comments on the visions that has been shared so far, please raise your hand. All right, I'm not seeing any hands. So Okay, moving on to value, please.
All right, values, okay. So again, what are values? This is our beliefs. This is really, to the core, this is what we're feeling inside as an agency. The principles, the guideposts, and that lens that drives you. It is the filter through which you make decisions. So it affects really every part of the operation. And this is a challenging one too, to winnow down to what is the core values. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples again from the neighbors. East Bay Mud, they kept their list pretty short. And they're focused on some of the things I've already heard mentioned, kind of swirling around as potential for Alameda. Stewardship, integrity, respect, and teamwork. So they summed it up in just 4 values. So they kept it, short and sweet. Now we're going to look at Sonoma Water. I'm helping Sonoma Water with their strategic plan for about the last 4 years, putting the plan together and then helping to implement. So they also have identified stewardship, but they wanted to specifically capture environmental stewardship. And they do a tremendous amount of work, as you all know, with their fisheries, et cetera. They really wanted to call that out. Equity, integrity again, our team, and resilience. Stewardship can be narrow or broad. They've qualified it just a bit here because stewardship can be stewardship in all ways that you provide service and the way you show up. So that's the way Sonoma is looking at their values. I'm going to go back to Yuba Water Agency. They've added another couple of interesting elements that we haven't seen quite yet here. Safety, collaboration, excellence and accountability, innovation, again, stewardship, and public responsibility. So sometimes as you try to winnow down your core values, because they should be core values, and long lists will do nothing but dilute sort of what people can surmise from your values. So you do want to really keep it with those things that are at your core. But sometimes elements, for example, here can be picked up and included in other parts of your plan. So that's another way to kind of get at it, if you will. But that's how Yuba has articulated their values. I'm going to go to Zone 7. Also helping Zone 7 with some work. You see some similarities here. Team, service, fiscal responsibility, safety again. That is really popping up around the state now. Gee, I wonder why, right? Transparency, environmental responsibility, and leadership. So a little bit longer list, but very interesting. A lot of those things connect to each other. So that's kind of where they landed. As you look at these examples, what themes around values pop into your head? Sometimes it's always good. The first thing that pops in your head, you got to write it down. Anything coming up?
I'm not a big fan of team because I don't know where it fits.
Yeah.
Team, great. Environmental responsibility, I actually like, in that it's not a statement that says we're environmentalists. It's a statement that we're aware of it, we're concerned of it. Obviously, we have differing opinions among all of us. Integrity, absolutely. I think integrity, I think is really important. Now you get away with environmental, maybe just go to stewardship. Not sure what public responsibility means.
Yeah, that was an interesting one.
Uh, You could twist that, I think, and make it something to the effect of our responsibility to our community. I don't know about public responsibility. I'm good with safety.
Again, this is just the values that they put on the table. There are many others you can consider. Just kind of wanted to give you some inspiration. And you're probably going to want to think about this between now and the next workshop, and I'll be checking in with you. But what comes to mind, Director Weed?
Each of the examples you've given are water wholesalers. We're a water retailer.
Mhm.
We have 86,000 or 87,000 customers we deal with directly. This group, at most a dozen. Sonoma supports 5 agencies, Valley Water, primarily investor-owned utilities. It goes on and on.
Mhm.
But there's in looking at values and as well as your vision, the retail component is important to us
Yeah,
in dealing with that many people.
that's a good perspective.
It would be nice, and I've argued, one of our great failures as a district has not been acquiring control and preferably ownership of our watershed, water conveyance mechanism storage. We had the opportunity, and it was a tragic failure of this district a few years ago, not to acquire the watershed of the Creek. So there again, if there was to be a new vision, a vision is to maybe look more as a wholesaler rather than a retailer, because our history has been a retailer. And we haven't been able to get beyond.
Thank you, Director Weed. Director, that's Sethy. Any thoughts?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Director Akbari?
Obviously, I want to kind of take a little bit of time to
Oh,
think
absolutely.
about
This is just
list,
an
but-
introduction.
Yeah, but I think the ones that stood out to me as being, I guess, most relatable so far, stewardship for sure, because I think that covers a few different grounds. It covers environmental stewardship, of course, but also just how we care for our community. And I like the idea of adding in safety and resilience as well, because like you mentioned, that's kind of top of mind for districts across California, and us included especially. Those are the ones that I found to be kind of the ones that pop out right
Mhm.
away. I did like Yuba Water Agency added in innovation as well, which I thought was really interesting, and one that I probably wouldn't have thought of at first, but I like that as a value as well. So yeah, those are just initial thoughts, but definitely kind of useful to see what other folks have listed as their core values.
Definitely, and I can bring back more examples, and I will. Because, we're loaded with them around the state, but just to kind of orient us, right, for the discussion.
Okay. So I have stewardship overall, inclusive, including environmental, water supply, community, and integrity. And next one will be accountabilities/transparency. And then the last one popped up would actually be high quality service. So those are the 4 that's currently kicking around in my head. I'm sure more will come out
Oh, yeah.
once I have some time to think about it. Let me open it up to our members of the public. Do you have any thoughts for us, Mr. Abreu, in terms of our vision?
3 sets of thoughts. One is these things, I can't get into details because I don't want to be mean, but, some of these agencies with some of the things that they say are their values is actually, they're pointing at their weakness and trying to say that, oh, look, we're good at this. Well, no, you're not good at that. You're very bad at that. And you're worse than the other agencies at that. Then there's if you're going to be doing, what is it, branding and sales and kind of coming up with, the best, one of these agencies, a retailer, is pushing a giant, huge, they were charging too little money, so now they have to raise their prices a lot. And they came up with all these options for how much are we going to raise the prices by, was small, medium, or large. And large was very large. And they labeled these stabilize, enhance, accelerate. This is the kind of Orwellian kind of naming. It's really good. It's really good. I think I admire that. You take you make it into, you pretend like you're doing something good for the people when you're raising their prices a lot. And then finally, this agency, I kind of know this agency a little bit, and it has a lot of strengths. So, you don't have to scramble around and say, oh, we want to be this, we want to be this. You can just say we are this, and you probably do have some things that you're very strong at, and you do have some things you can just, throw out there, and at least I wouldn't laugh at you if you threw them out.
Thank you, Mr. Arbor. How about for our member of the public online? Do you have any thoughts or comments for us regarding the visions? I am not seeing a hand.
No.
All right, then go for it.
Quick question. So I'm curious, in your experience, are there kind of core values that you've seen all districts tend to hone in on? And when you think about kind of the number of elements in a value statement or list of values, I'm just curious what your
You
thoughts
mean
are.
the number,
No,
total number?
Total number, and are there ones that you see as like a through line that everybody adopts this as a value?
There are definitely some themes that we're seeing. It's interesting in this round of updates, different than earlier, right? The last round, let's say pre-COVID, post-COVID.
Yeah.
Definitely some new things that are rising to the top. For example, words like team, inclusion, safety, innovation, transparency. Those, and I think stewardship has been there. It's been covered. You might have seen it referred to as environmental protection. That was sort of the precursor to what we're seeing now, characterized more in a stewardship capacity. But I'm happy to bring back some more of that. I will say more than 6 values, you really start to dilute. If you think about your personal values, how many personal values can we have, right? Before we're tripping over our values and they become somewhat diluted. So just, if you think about it again as it will serve as your lens, your touch point, as you move through and make decisions and identify your priorities, et cetera. It doesn't take long before you can kind of boil it down. I have seen some agencies that, 10, and if I help them, they never get to have that many. Want to keep it 4 being the key word. But yeah, I'm happy to bring back more lists, because I think it's really instructive to see. And also geographically, I think it might be interesting for you all to sort of see what some of the Southern California agencies, how they're articulating things. They may be in a different part of the state, but they have many of the same challenges. And so we'll do that as well. Just kind of wanted to get you moving here.
I'll throw out one more, not too cynical comment. But we, at a district, we need to come up with some terminology to identify regulatory compliance, which in our case really becomes a value and a driver for what we do. And there's got to be a way that we put regulatory compliance into a broader, more egalitarian context.
Some way to put a positive spin on that.
I don't, I wouldn't agree that that's a value statement.
It
But-
should not be, is what I'm saying, but I believe.
Oh,
it's
you're saying it
become.
should not be.
It
Okay.
should not be but it's one that has become, I believe, a value. It's just.
Mm.
I want to come back to a couple things. First of all, I do agree with stewardship or environmental stewardship. I like teamwork. I think that's very important, teamwork and safety. And we have become trying to build more of a safety culture into the district with a lot of extra training, and we are seeing noticeable changes, where our safety record is continuously coming down in a better way. I'm looking up some other water districts here quickly. I'm at Contra Costa Water District, which essentially has the same mission statement that we do. But one thing that they have, which I really like, is we recognize our employees as our greatest asset. Now, how you put that into one word is, I think that really is part of teamwork. And I had a professor, I was sharing this with Director Akbari some time back, who asked us in a finance class, what's the greatest asset that doesn't appear on a balance sheet? And no one could answer the question. And he finally had to say, it's the people in the organization. And they're your most valuable asset. And so you have to learn as future managers how to develop, manage, build a proper culture around those people, build team chemistry. And that's where you're going to have the most leverage in the future success of your organization, is if you treat your people properly, compensate them properly. So I think employees are a very important part of who we are. I'm going to go back to Cucamonga Valley Water District. Says their vision is founded on people, service, and water. Without any one component of this three-piece puzzle, the picture would be incomplete. So for people are innovative, empowered, and provide exceptional customer service. Under service, CCW is a servant-oriented organization and provides service beyond expectations to all customers. That's quite a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of water, it's very much like our mission statement. CVWD provides a high-quality, sustainable water supply that is safe, reliable, and delivered at a cost-effective price. I'll bring up one last one. Irvine Ranch Water District. Our vision is to achieve greater customer and employee satisfaction. Here you go back to employees. Increased reliability and resource conservation, that's stewardship. And excellent external relationships with suppliers and others. They have a little bit broader.
Mm-hmm.
If you will financially.
Yeah. But those are some three other inputs.
Yeah, very helpful.
And I really like integrity. I think it's very important when we're hiring people that they recognize that we want people of integrity. That's what we're built around. And it's that teamwork and integrity that help
Right.
build a solid organization.
It's all about the people, right?
To go back onto the environmental stewardship, stick with stewardship. Stewardship doesn't just necessarily mean environmental stewardship. It's system stewardship. We're protecting and worried, we're concerned about our system. Why are we upgrading? That's
Totally
being a
agree.
proper steward.
Totally agree.
Watershed stewardship, that environmental could be. System, PFAS, that's a proper quality stewardship. So I think stewardship's really important. Certainly integrity, can't buy it back. She lost it.
Stewardship does cover a lot of bases.
And that's why it shouldn't be environmental stewardship. solely.
And I would disagree about innovation being part of vision. I think innovation belongs as part of when we get down to goals.
Right, that's why I raised that as an option. That's where they wanted to put it, but it can certainly find itself in other parts of the plan. And will probably make more sense there for you all. Any other thoughts coming to you around values at the moment? Okay. So the mission statement, this is your current mission statement. We just wanted to sort of flag it, everybody take a look at it. We're going to dig into the mission statement in a little more detail when we meet next time, once we've been able to have some check-ins with you all. But wanted to put it up there, and I will be bringing back some examples specifically on this as well. Just as you're looking at it, and some of the earlier comments that were made around some terms or some concepts that you may want to flag for integration in your mission statement. And those would be some of the items that were mentioned earlier around potential affordability was a word that I know came up in your earlier session. I believe you talked about whether it's diversity or inclusion or some theme along those lines that had come up in your earlier session. So just any words, anything here that is coming to you when you look at it now, certainly a strong mission statement. It certainly does capture what you do. Anything missing coming to your mind right now?
I love our mission statement as it is.
Okay,
I wouldn't make any
I wouldn't
changes.
change it at all.
I would-
Reliable, high quality.
Look at
reasonable
that.
price.
Yep.
Yeah,
just
I
cut my
agree.
work in half. Well, wow, I see, I was trying to get a rise out of you and I did, so excellent.
I agree with them. Not woke yet.
And some of these other things can be captured elsewhere, but we'll continue to look at it. You could change your mind as we move along.
Well, see, I like at a reasonable price because it's very hard to commit to more than that. Under goals, we can talk about affordability.
Yeah.
Under strategic or strategy and tactics, we can actually talk about how we might want to implement some of those ideas.
Yeah, reasonable is a pretty good word nowadays because affordable is it's sort of a higher bar. And what does it mean, right?
It's a moving bar.
It's a moving bar.
Well, as we know from
System.
our customer surveys, we live in a very high wealth community. And of the water districts in the Bay Area, we have the lowest price for water, retail pricing for water. There are a couple cities below us, but they're subsidizing their rates. So, I think we deliver really good value for our product, which is water, to, a very high net worth community.
Great point.
I'm not a big fan of affordable because you'll see, just Flint, Michigan. Well, their water was affordable. They wanted to make it more affordable. And they made it worthless. So reasonable price, you're gonna have to pay for quality, you're gonna have to pay for reliability. If you don't, then you don't have it.
And reasonable price doesn't mean just water. It's your infrastructure,
Right.
The curious thing is we do not bill, our billings do not reflect the distinction between the variable price and the variable costs and fixed costs.
That's
That-
not
that's the strategy
necessarily
and
the opinion of
another
everybody on
element,
this board.
But hopefully we can work that out. in a reasonable time.
That's a different meeting.
That's
Yeah.
a long meeting.
That's where our problems will lie.
Okay,
So I,
Break it up.
I think you heard all of us like the mission statement, right? Director Akbari, do you have
Yeah,
any?
I
com-
would, I actually would not change a thing about our mission statement, and I agree with the comments around why we've used the word reasonable
Uh-huh.
over affordable or anything else like that. I think reasonable is the correct word for us to be using in our mission statement.
So with that, I'm going to see Mr. Brew. Do you have any comments for us on our mission statement?
Here I've got a lot more imagination. I think, imagine that your product, that I was Mr. Whatever that big company that makes Ozempic, or one of those companies. And I'm not selling you this chemical compound. I'm selling you a better life or whatever. And the way they price those things, it's not about reasonable, it's about value to the civilization, to the customer or the civilization, whatever. They get all the value. They got these things up there, and
That's
then
called a
and their factories they can't build them enough.
That's called
So
a Cadillac pricing model.
yeah. So anyway, so there's a lot of room here. If you're looking for imagination, this is, you're delivering whatever and you're supporting the economy. You're doing this. This could be the mission statement could be tremendously more imaginative. And then how you achieve that vision, you would have I forgot what the next level of whatever, but this could be the next level of how we implement the vision. But the vision could be, like the price for Ozempic.
I think we strive to be accountable and transparent. That's where we're going to leave it. For our member of the public online, do you have any questions or comments on the mission statement so far? Please raise your hand if you have any comments for us. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So moving on, please, Ms. Persyke.
thank you. Oh, I'm just enjoying the discussion. You guys are coming up with some great feedback. So we will be, when we meet again, revisiting priorities / goals, the strategies, which is the how, strategies or objectives, and really starting to think through the structure of the plan as well, the terminology that we want to be using. That's another thing that seems to be evolving as districts are putting their plans together. Are they going to use the word goal? Are they going to use the word priority? Are they going to use the word strategies versus objectives, et cetera? So thinking those things through, there's subtleties around it. Some people have a hard time understanding what an objective is, believe it or not. So that's why that's been replaced for some agencies with the term strategy. So we'll see where you want to land on that. But just wanted to kind of put that out there that we will be digging into. Any comments at all on those kinds of things, sort of structural things at this point?
Well, I would come back next time we meet to go through a little board exercise and even a staff exercise on 2 different boards. We've done it in the past where we get color-coded labels.
Oh, the stickers.
Right, and so we come up with all the potential words for vision. And we say to ourselves, we're not gonna have any more than 6, just throwing that out. And
Right.
then the staff gets to label things and the board gets to on separate boards.
Oh, yes.
And I think that would help us really connect and narrow down to what we all believe in.
Absolutely. We will be doing the ranking on everything. And I have a fun exercise. We'll see if, I'm not going to tell you about it yet. I'm a surprise. But the stickers are excellent. Excellent way to do that ranking. For
Well,
start.
you know, you had at the beginning that this is the board activity for value, mission statement, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But I really feel like our employees have to be involved with what they feel the vision should be too.
Agreed.
They're the ones that work here every day, and so we're representing the public, but I really want to see what the match is between how we feel as a board, as individuals, and our senior leadership.
And Director Sethy, I think that would be a perfect comment, which I was going to make on slide 32.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm
we're
sorry.
gonna get there.
Stakeholders.
I didn't see
Hold
that.
that
No, I
thought.
think that's actually,
Hold that thought. But you're getting right to that question that I'm gonna ask. So the journey, just kind of wanted to map this out, where we are and where we're headed and what we hope to be doing as we come together. And anything, this is another input from you, certainly things that you'd like to see. Here we are in March, we're actually kicking off and starting our conversations. As I mentioned, I have been able to now have interviews with your leadership team. So I've got all kinds of good feedback that we'll be sharing. When we come back in, I think April, there will be an update, right, as part of the meeting. Oh, in June. Okay, sorry. I guess we won't be doing that in April. It'll be in June. And we'll be getting together, unpacking all of the insights that the board has provided today and any additional insights that you'll be providing. And starting to really bring in some of the drafts on a couple of these things. Some of the things you've mentioned today that you'd like to see, I've recorded that. And we'll be taking a look to start really refining. And then in July, that will be our third workshop, further refinement on elements. And within this time frame as well, June, July, we will be looking at, once we get to the next slide, any other of your interested parties, groups that you think we need to reach out to and get their insights and input.
Okay, sir. This is the start of a classic strategic plan. But as you noted, my experience is after you get to the strategies, you go to the objectives and milestones. So you have established the metrics and have some measure of performance.
Yes.
And what I gather from your comments, we're not going into objectives and milestones. That'll be a separate effort on the part of the district on how to implement the strategic plan.
So we will have objectives and milestones as a result of this process, but actually a lot of that will be driven by what the board establishes as our, overall strategic goals here. So staff, just like we did last time, we will take what the board identifies as priorities for this organization, and we will convert them into, we'll go to the tactic level, right? And we'll establish KPIs and goals, right? So we'll do that. But most important for this board is to establish those priorities. And so that will be the bulk of what we're really leaning on the board for. But I think, the board will see the process as it goes and will be able to kind of share your thoughts as to whether we're hitting the right marks or not. So I would say there's going to be very much, I think I at least personally envision it being similar to last time around where the board was really leaned upon for those overall priorities, and then staff was really engaged in the specific tactics and the milestones and Gantt charts and so forth to get there. But again, the board will have a lot to say about how we do this specifically.
Another general comment, which I referred to basically earlier. We are subject to the regulatory criteria of the state of California. Some foolishness like conservation as a way of life. Other guidelines are out there. Droughts are episodic. It should be construed in my mind as a contingency. How do you do contingency planning? Not really in our framework yet. Hopefully it will be. So, and realizing that whatever we're doing is truly long-term. In the water world, you talk in centuries, not necessarily short-term actions. So that will be the major challenge for us. Hopefully we'll broaden our vision into, I mean, other than a retailer, recognize the challenges we've encountered have been on the wholesale side, the ability of acquiring and maintaining and securing our water supply. We could do a lot more there. It's not been a historic part of this district's primary goals, nor have contingency planning been a major issue for us.
I have a question for the staff. Anybody can recall, or any board member. Is there a reason why we did not focus on our values in the last strategic plan?
Yeah, I think, we were all there. I think the question was asked, and I think as I recall, it was, that doesn't need to be the focus right now. We're really more interested in the plan. I think that was really the focus last time around. I don't think it was one of those things that we dwelled on much. I think there was interest on this board to dig into the plan, right? You guys are all very action oriented, right? And by the way, our strategic plan has worked great, right? And I think this time, as we thought about these issues before we re-engaged with the board, we asked ourselves, okay, what are some of the things that are important that we may want to ask about again and see whether or not there's, now that we have a strategic plan and we're really only thinking more along the lines of an update, what are the things that we might need as an organization? And I will tell you, we internally have thoughts about our vision, and we share those with prospective candidates that are out there. We share those with one another so that we're all have the same mindset in terms of why we're here or what we're trying to accomplish. But we feel that it's important for this district as a whole to step back and think about these things.
Well, I remember when I first joined the board, I asked the then general manager, as a new board member, where is the strategic plan for the organization? And he said, we've never had one.
Yeah.
And I go, wow, really? Well, we need to develop one at some point. And finally we did. But I think that when prospective employees are coming and checking out the district, they go to our website.
Yeah.
Customers go to our website, or they're paying a bill. The very first thing I think they should see on our homepage is, what are our values?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now when say job seekers go to our jobs page, they see things like that. And on printed materials, they do see things like that, because it is important. These are the things they're interested in. They want to know who it is that they would potentially engage with.
Absolutely.
Now, let me comment that if I made some pejorative comments, this district has done an extraordinary job and is top-notch when it comes in comparison to others. I did serve on a community college board where I was once asked by a consultant what our strategic plan was. Well, it's our current budget. So we've gone along, we're far away from that.
Thank you for that comment. With that, moving on.
Yes, so just to continue around the road there, again, will be continued refinement, insight, all along the way as we bring you, final drafts and refinement again, and then approval of the updated plan. So there may be a little movement with some of the elements here, some of the deliverables, but in general, that's what we're looking at for this journey. So now let's go to some of the other questions that we've been kind of nibbling around. Others that you want to be sure to get input, insight, feedback from as we move through the process. Director Sethy, I heard what you were saying about the team, making sure that they're a part of this and are weighing in. What are there others? Other groups in your community? Leaders?
jump in. On the water supply, we share the same water supply system as the other South Bay Aqueduct contractors.
Mm-hmm.
That gives us some, if we could establish joint unity, possibly under JPA, I believe that our ability to secure and maintain our water supplies would be far enhanced. There's a change in governance, which is a real challenge to any entity. It's one I think I encourage us to think about.
I was just going to mention it on slide 8. There was a diagram from a 2023 workshop that went through stakeholders, and it included employees on our unions, it included our peer agencies, regulators, and then a lot of community organizations as well. The diagram in the top right-hand
Yeah.
corner is what I'm referencing. So I would look at that again because I feel like that's a pretty comprehensive list.
Okay.
It includes a lot of community organizations, and anywhere that we can get feedback from anyone who's willing to give it. I'm always an open ear to take it. So, yeah, that's where my head goes.
Great, thank you.
I would agree with that. I was going to add our customers and our community because I would like to hear what's their vision for this district and where we should be in 5 years. But I am definitely even happier if we open up to the broader community with that list that's on slide 8. So,
I will
Director
throw-
Wee?
Let me throw out one more. You had a comment in here about districts. We do great outreach. We do not engage well. We're a public entity, secure gate, our staff has to get, someone wants to visit our staff, they've got to go through security and sign in. I suggested that community engagement is best done through a foundation, which can bring in a variety of local stakeholders. The foundation, employees of the foundation are employees of the district. They have a separate audit. Less than a quorum of your board can serve on the foundation. But one way to get community engagement, which should include some of your environmental work, your conservation and emergency response may be better done with a broader group within a different governance structure than an office which does newsletters and a few community.
Director Gunther, any thoughts?
This is always a tough one. I mean, community engagement. Mr. Haber tonight, thank you, Ken Kelly, for coming. We had a meeting over at Logan High School. Principal came. You know, we go over to Newark. I think we had 3 people come.
One was homeless looking for a free meal.
Library. And I don't know, I mean, short of going out on the street with a lasso and dragging them in, our staff does, in my opinion, a great job to publicize these things, get them out there. The only time they fill a room is if you talk about raising their rates by 20%. I guess that means we're doing something right because they're not in the room screaming at us. But that's a tough one. And I mean, I'd love to see more now maybe Rotaries will help and things like that. There's certainly ability to outreach there. But I don't think the district has done anything wrong. People are busy and they're happy in general, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're satisfied and happy where we're going. Otherwise, that room might have a few more people in it. But I'm always open to suggestions. I think that chart from 2018 is a great chart, but I don't know. I go to the public meetings and
So,
Mm-hmm.
just for reference, so I joined the board in 2010. And one of the first things I asked that we take a look at is we only had this gentleman, Frank John, who was doing school outreach and our newsletter. And I said, I'd really like to have a broader look at developing a communications plan and some type of public relations. And so we invited in, I think you know her well, Fiona Hutton,
Yes.
to develop our communication plan, which I still have in my office on my bookshelf. And it was an excellent plan. And I was mentioning to one of her partners when we were last at Aqua that I can't believe how much of her plan we specifically have implemented, including our first hire, which was Shireen Gonzalez. We didn't have anybody before her with those broad skills. And so we developed a small little department from there. When we covered slide 9, I just wanted to emphasize this, where it says, other comments, this is an area of major improvements, keep it up. Well, the fact is we started with almost nothing and we developed a lot of capabilities that we didn't have before. And so I think I was the person who made that comment that we've just come such a long way as a district, and we're the oldest county water district in the state, and we didn't have a public relations communications department really.
Wow.
And so now we're approaching our 111th anniversary in a few weeks. And to me, that was shocking when I came on the board that we didn't have a department like that. And now we're getting all these awards from Capio and at Aqua and getting all this positive community feedback. So I feel like we've come a long ways in the last decade.
We definitely have, but moving on to yours, you do have another question for us, right? On the ideal outcome for strategic plan update?
Yes, let me go back to that.
Director Gunther?
One thing I just realized that we do always get people for, we may want to look towards our very near future. We open up the desal plant, we open up the treatment plant, and they show up. That may be a time to look for him.
Price for admission is answering our list of questionnaire.
Well, no, that's where that's bring those to those events.
I see.
That's when we get
They
our.
want to see it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
We've made major improvements, and it's in comparison. We had a situation, we had a staff member at a cost of $1,000 per school visit would make go to the various classrooms. We later, for a fifth of that price, and a team now in that we contract with to visit the schools and make a presentation. So there are ways we can improve our operations, and we have. I believe that we could become far more ingrained with the community through a different governance structure, a different structure.
And I
And
think,
that's governance again.
and I think that those would be great when we talk about implementation.
Yeah.
But in terms of your question, I guess for me, the ideal outcome for strategic plan update is to have another plan that's actionable, that actually has specific items that we could implement, that would lead to items we could implement with actually a time to completion. And that it will, once again, not be a document that sits on a bookshelf. So that would be my ideal outcome.
Excellent.
Anybody else?
I mean, I'll second your comments, Director Huang, and I'll just say that one thing that I have found particularly valuable since we've implemented our first strategic plan is anytime we have a board agenda, each item calls out what specific area of the strategic plan this impacts or is impacted by. And I think that does a really good job of bringing even the most kind of the most simplest or day-to-day objectives of ours back to the big picture of what we're trying to accomplish as a district. So I really like that. You know, that's kind of not exactly what the question is, but
But
it's just something
no,
that
it's-
that has been a result of our
Yeah.
strategic plan that I think has been very positive.
Yeah, it's great to have that discipline and really be connecting all the way through. I think it certainly helps your team also to see where their work is in relation to the strategic plan. So good for you for doing that. And it makes sense to continue for sure.
Director Wee, any comment?
I'll make one editorial comment on one of your slides. Under strategies, you say how you will approach your works. We would also think how you will accomplish your work.
Mm-hmm.
Director Sethy?
No more comments.
Okay, Director Gunther,
I'm good.
you're good? Okay, let's open it up to the public. Mr. Abreu. Stakeholder to engage, ideal outcome for strategic
Just
plan
a real
update?
quick, I think maybe the fact that nobody cares and nobody shows up is understandable, especially if you consider that the whole community here, Fremont, whatever, the Tri-Cities, whatever it is, the media and the whole media ecosystem has disappeared. So the city has its own media thing that they do all the time, and they'll send out mail, whatever, what they're doing. And then, so where you do have other communities where they do have some media left, and then that's like a giant hole, and you have to keep throwing content in there to fill because there's a pipeline to all the people's houses or on the internet or whatever and there's media. So then their water providers are a lot more visible. And it's not because they're all that great at putting out public relations and content. It's just that there's something there to feed.
Well, just to build on that, because I have gone to Valley Water District meetings, Zone 7, East Bay Mud meetings, and you get plenty of people coming in to their board meetings. 2 of those are held in the middle of the day, East Bay Mud and Valley Water, and their committee meetings too. But even at Zone 7, like Mr. Abreu is saying, they're always in the news, in the publications that are out in the Tri-Valley area.
Yeah.
And so they get really good participation and attendance at their meetings.
Yeah, they do. They have
And-
reporters that regularly follow them.
And you see active campaigns and elections where, you've got several candidates for each of their positions on the board. It's very competitive.
Thank you, Director Sethy. Any other directors comment? If not, I am going to open up to our online customers. So for a member of public online, if you have any comments or questions for the board or staff, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. I am not seeing any hands. All right, moving on.
All right, well, actually, that is what we had ready for you today, just to kind of introduce where we are, where we're headed, things that we'll be talking about. You've actually given quite great input already. I really appreciate that, and that'll be part of what we bring back and what we work from to frame our conversation next time. Other things to be said?
Well, I think you said it all, Jennifer. And no, this was actually good. I know the juices are flowing, and that's really important. So we're going to be looking for a lot more input from you all as we go. There will be more updates along the way. I mean, you saw in the sort of roadmap there a number of touch points with the board. We'll be providing an update in April. We will be kind of circling back, rolling up some sleeves in June, and then beyond. So a lot more to come, but we appreciate your initial thoughts as we get going here.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, then that's moving on to item number 5, General Manager's Report.
Okay, item number 5, I've got one listed here, but we have, of course, several written in invisible ink that we want to pass along too, because things, come up. But first, for the state water contractors, letter to governor and state water board regarding Delta conveyance project hearings. I'll turn that over to Ms. Heidiss and ask her to provide a little update.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. So on March 21st, the district signed on to an urgent letter to the governor and the State Water Resources Control Board regarding an unfortunate development in the ongoing water rates hearing related to the Delta Conveyance Project. The letter was signed by the State Water Contractors Organization and 17 of its members, in addition to ACWD, some of whom are participating in the Delta Conveyance Project and some who are not. In short, the State Water Resources Control Board Administrative Hearing Office recently ruled that it may use the existing historic State Water Project diversion information to place a limit on future Delta Conveyance Project diversions. If it were to do that, there was significant concern that this would also be construed as a cap on existing State Water Project diversions because the same underlying water rights are at issue. So this would also be of great concern to us here at the district, regardless as to whether we proceed with the Delta Conveyance Project or not, because if a cap like that were put in place, it could be expected to impact our current and our ongoing state water project supplies with or without the Delta Conveyance Project. And because of that, that's also why you had both Delta Conveyance Project participants and non-participants signing on to this letter. The letter also noted some concerns with the delay that this would cause in the hearing process and for the overall impact to the project schedule and delay. So this was a very quick turnaround letter, and there was a flurry of activity to pull it together, and we had some overnight changes and only had a very short time to review the final version and decide whether or not to sign on. They made a bunch of changes that we felt were good, and that the letter was something that made sense for us to sign on to. And we had just a very brief time to do that. So this is when Ed and I are asking for forgiveness to some extent, because we did send the letter. He did reach out to both our president and vice president of the board to let them know this was happening, and noted that we would share that today with you all as well. So that's our update on this particular letter. I'm happy to answer any brief questions.
Questions?
Yeah, great. Thank you. And now have two unwritten updates. One like late breaking within minutes from Mr. Wunderlich. There's a good news story here, and there's also a, I don't know, suboptimal news story, but I'll let John choose which one to do first.
We'll do the suboptimal news story first, finish on a good note. Earlier today, we experienced an outage with customer access to our online payment system. And this was due to a local internet failure that prevented the multiple vendors involved in this process from being able to access the systems they need to. So it was not, I want to be clear, it was not a failure of the vendors. It was a failure of local internet service. And so that traffic has now been routed to the district's secondary internet service provider and is up and running again. And the customer service and IT and vendor teams will be working on ways to make these processes more resilient in the future to limit the potential for reoccurrence. So that's the less than optimal news story, but it is up and running again. It was down for much of the day. We did pause disconnections given the lack of access to these services. The good news story is that Tuesday morning, we received 12 bids for our 2025 water system revenue bonds, which was an outstanding result. And I will provide a more detailed, agendized report on this at the regular April board meeting. But just to quickly report that, given prevailing market conditions, we received an excellent overall result with a true interest cost in terms of what the buyer of the bonds will get, which is Bank of America, is 3.96%, which is strong given current market conditions, and that we were able to refund most but not all of our 2015 bonds as part of that transaction. Some of the further out maturities The market results did not warrant a refunding as it wouldn't have saved money. But most of the maturities we were able to refund, achieving savings of $863,000 net present value for our customers.
Yeah, so good outcome. I know we have a number of directors that are super interested in that topic, so we will have an item on the agenda for April. But we just couldn't help ourselves but to pass along at least the general report that there was a good success there. So next up is new stuff happening you may or may not notice. Your customers may or may not notice, but Mr. Stevenson, no relation, has a report about what's happening with TP2.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, everybody. We're doing our annual water treatment plant number 2 shutdown. So we began ramping down this week. We should be at zero flow on Monday, the 31st, and we'll be out until May 5th. In the interim, we'll be supplementing the water supply with SFPUC water. So the southern portion of the system may see some different water quality effects. This is a careful planning that we do annually. It's part of our annual maintenance strategy that we do to keep the plant operating reliably year-round. Some of the bigger projects that we're doing this time are chemical line cleaning and descaling. We're doing some solids removal equipment overhauling, and we're also prepping the plant for, we're going to come back online in May with the new ignition SCADA system. So we'll be integrating that for the first 90 days. Yeah, so we plan this event year round pretty much. We have several meetings, and it's careful coordination, almost a careful choreography, if you will, because we try to optimize and maximize the plant downtime to get as many maintenance activities, and then we carefully plan these projects as well. So just brief update for the board. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, finally, a quick report by me. Just a reminder, I did send out an email. The workshop that was tentatively on the calendar for April 17, that's been canceled. That was originally scheduled late last year as a potential workshop for water resources master planning. So we're not going to need that for now. So we'll you're welcome. You get that evening off, but plenty more excitement to come. So that's the last of our general manager's reports.
All right, thank you. Moving on to director's comments and or agenda item requests. Director Sethy, you have an item?
One report from the last month's South Bay, or earlier this month's South Bay Engineers Club meeting. Interesting subject matter on all the new traffic calming strategies that are going into effect across California. And 2 of the leading consultants were showing and demonstrating adoption of many European strategies for calming traffic, including different kinds of speed bumps, going down to single lanes instead of multiple lanes, putting in further bike lanes, and then most importantly, the introduction of roundabouts going in across California. We have one of the 3 most notable ones here near Hollister. It's called the Dutch Roundabout. And it's one of the largest in the country that's been implemented. But on the flip side, it was discussed about what the impacts are on utilities underground. Because now you have impediments to when you have to do work at these intersections with the roundabouts. With the bike lanes, for example, Fremont was given as a good example. There are a lot of utilities that are between the bike lane and the sidewalk. Now you have to take all that out and then put it back in. And there are a lot of issues for fire departments where cities are putting in speed bumps, and fire department ends up being there 10 minutes too late for an incident because it's very difficult to drive more than 2 miles an hour over a speed bump. So the thing to be on the alert for that I learned for water district, sewer district, PG&E, cable company, any underground utilities is to recognize what the future impacts might be. And we were all told to, make sure your engineering departments are aware of where your cities are putting in these type of things. And then, of course, Mr. Awoke and I have been serving on the paving standards subcommittee in Aqua. And we've been going through all the issues on that too, on responsibilities between agencies. So all in all, it was pretty good. And I will just close by saying that Director Weed and I attended the early morning auction on our bonds. And as usual, I think we both find it very interesting. And we did well. B of A actually came in, if you think about it in bond terms, quite a bit below the other 11 bidders. So good job to everybody. Oh, by the way, this forthcoming week at the South Bay Engineers Club, I'm encouraging some of our engineers to go because we're going to be talking about a very important subject on linear engineering and everything that goes on underground, with the utilities and coordinating with other agencies and things like that. So it should be a really good learning experience for any of our engineers that are interested in that.
I bet we could teach it.
Yeah, please.
Any other,
We need an ACWD speaker.
any other questions or comments from directors? Director Wee?
I think it's worth noting how exclusive a group we're with now, the AAA rating by Moody's. To the chagrin of one other district in the state, which now has to republish their literature, we are now the second AAA Moody's rated district in the state of California, and apparently one of 11 in the country.
Oh,
So,
And with a AAA from Standard & Poor's too.
well, they give them S&P. But the Moody's is far more prestigious and difficult to achieve.
And we will have an opportunity to take a victory dance in April when we have it on the agenda.
yep. All right, with that, any other comments?
Thank you.
Questions?
Just hearing the word roundabout as a former resident of the Boston area is got me breaking out in hives over here.
All right, with that, hearing no other questions or comments from the directors, I'll call the meeting adjourned at 5:53.